Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of Belly Up Sports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at righteousfelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
Liga MX, man. So, it's funny because me and Edward, we were talking about the criticism that Liga MX gets, right? And then now we're hearing this. So there was an owners meeting to discuss changes in Liga MX. Essentially, the goal is to raise the level of competition. They want to get a better product in Liga MX, and I think after we watched the final for the Clausura, seeing how Toluca, overcame their obstacles and beat Club America, ending their chances of a 4-peat, right? I think that this is telling about that they believe that this could raise the level of the competition. And I think one of the biggest complaints that I've had with Liga MX is that play-in format. I don't like the play-in round. I think it needs to be removed. Well, not for the 2026 Apertura, the 2025 Apertura, but the 2026 Clausura, it will be removed. There will not be a play-in for the 2026 Clausura. Now, I don't know if for the 2026 Apertura if it's going to continue or if it's just because of that. Because the sole purpose of removing the play-in is because, obviously, 2026, what's coming? The FIFA Club World Cup. So removing the play-in format. The other thing that's going to be added in 2026 is that the playoff teams will not be able to use players that are going to be on the Mexican national team, because obviously at that point you're talking about summertime in kind of near the summer. Obviously they finish here in May, so those players are going to be preparing for the 2026 World Cup, which obviously Mexico is hosting, is one of the hosts for the World Cup in 2026. So I think the objective obviously is to be very much prepared for this team, because there's going to be a lot of pressure for Mexico. One, it's Mexico. There's always pressure with Mexico when it comes to their national team. But secondly, this is the World Cup, right? And not only that, the World Cup is going to be here in North America. Mexico, USA, and Canada, they're going to have matches in Mexico. So you're going to feel the pressure from the fans. You're going to have that home field advantage from the fans. More so than ever, and I think that that's going to be a lot of pressure, and they want to make sure that they put out the best product that they can possibly. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure because of just how Mexico has been lately in tournaments, not including Nations League, obviously, but and we'll see how this Gold Cup transpires. But I will point out, I just want to point this out, when they drop the training camp roster, I guess, for the friendlies, it's a bigger roster than what the U.S. men's national team is bringing out, but it is a lot of names that you would expect to be on the Mexican national team. Now, are they going to be on the Gold Cup roster? Because once again, it is, I believe it's like 35, maybe a 35, 37 man roster. So obviously they got to shrink it down to 26, but still. Raul Jimenez is going to be there. Santiago Jimenez is going to be there. Memo Ochoa is on the list. Like, the guys that you expect to be playing for the Mexican national team are on that roster. Like I said, I think maybe they're just being brought in there to play the friendlies, and then Gold Cup comes, maybe they take them out. I hope that's not the case, because once again, kind of the similar pressures that the U.S. men's national team is facing going into this Gold Cup is the same thing for Mexico and Canada. Because once again, they don't have to play qualifiers. They're automatically in the World Cup because they're hosting it, right? So this is the last chance of having competitive matches for them, aside from just having friendlies with tougher competition. So for me, this is going to be a big understanding of where Mexico's taking, where Aguirre and where the Mexican national team, how they're going to pursue the Gold Cup. Are they going to take it similar to how the U.S. did it, where you're letting players opt out? And once again, I'm not changing my stance on it. I'm still very much like I don't like what they did. I don't like that a lot of guys were given the option to opt out. I understand that tiresome, and I get Eric Ronaldo's position and how he felt about it. But once again, this is the last chance you're getting competitive matches, and after the embarrassment that you had in the Nations League, you would think you want to flip that narrative. And once again, maybe they have a legitimate reason. Like, I get Yunus Musa needs to figure out his, like, the guys that need to figure out their club situations. I get those. I get those guys wholeheartedly. But like guys that know where they're going to be playing, like, and once again, not including the guys that are competing in the Club World Cup. I'm talking about just guys like Christian Pulisic, who I would have liked to have seen, but he is giving a rest. For however I felt about that, it's still how it is. But once again, I'm very much intrigued how Mexico and Canada is going to approach this. If we see Raul Jimenez on the roster, if we see guys, if we see Santiago Jimenez, if we see the expected guys, the usual suspects for L3, if we see them on the roster, that tells me that Mexico wants to get as much as they can out of this Gold Cup. Despite, I get it, it's not the same competition as you'll get in the World Cup. I get those things. It's not the same competition as you get in Copa America. I get that, but it's what you have. I don't like, you can't change. I mean, you could probably change your confederation, but like you saw Australia, but does Mexico want to go to CONMEBOL? Like, that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. But right now that you're in CONCACAF, you play in CONCACAF, you have to play CONCACAF competitions. So at the end of the day, you can't do anything about it. Like, the Gold Cup is the Gold Cup. They always invite one nation from another confederation to join. This year it's Saudi Arabia. So I think they tried to invite Argentina. Argentina said no. So what else you want to be done? But once again, like, I do want to see what Canada and Mexico do, because if they bring out a B team, then I guess, no one cares about this Gold Cup. But if Mexico brings out, I would say if they bring out like a hybrid A team, and I think I'll give some props to the U.S. men's national team players. Some of them, it is kind of like a hybrid A-B team, because there is guys that you would expect to play for the U.S. men's national team. So if it's a hybrid A-B team, if it's similar to that, maybe there's some players that do want to participate, and then maybe there's guys that are like, nah, I'll sit this one out, But I want to see what Mexico does as far as their official 26-man roster, and the same thing for Canada, because once again, it goes back down to expectations. I mean, once again, this isn't me taking jabs on all the guys that maybe we don't view as potential U.S. men's national team players, because those guys are this is their opportunity to showcase, like, hey, man, I think you should give me another look for the 2026 World Cup, and I get all that. But anyways, coming back to Mexico, essentially the changes is to put more of an effort for the Mexican national team, especially going into 2026, and this is what Ariola had to say. To maximize the home field advantage and strengthen the national team, the Clausura 2026 playoffs will be played without selected players. They will join the national team 6 weeks prior to start the World Cup. This would give us 50% more preparation matches than other countries, which must also be against top-level opponents. So they want to get as much as they can, build as much chemistry, build as much camaraderie between these guys prior to this World Cup, because once again, it's going to be played on their home soil. Like, they want to put out their best product ever, to showcase that they are more than capable of it. Also, Aguirre wants 2 friendlies in January 2026, so they want to have their version of Camp Cupcake, which I believe they do it actually. But yeah, so which it was funny because we called it Camp Concha. But yeah, I mean, but I think he wants to have like 2 legitimate friendlies. Obviously, they said that they want to play against top level opponents. The only issue with January, there's no official international friendly period. So whoever you play against it's just whoever is available, whoever can play, and is more likely not going to be an A team, if you will, kind of similar to what we mentioned with Camp Cupcake. One of the big issues with Camp Cupcake is that, yeah, you're playing a friendly, but you're not necessarily playing a friendly against good competition, because it may be a B or a C or even a D team at times for that. And that's kind of why Camp Cupcake isn't really a camp for guys that are playing in Europe, or guys that you would expect to be playing for the U.S. men's national team. But I think that this time around, that's what Aguirre wants, is to be able to bring in the guys that will be competing in the 2026 World Cup, and have friendlies against opponents that are very much going to be allowing their players to play in. So I wonder if FIFA is going to do anything differently because 2026 it is the World Cup, but we'll find out when we get there, I guess. But there's other things that Liga MX is planning on changing. So they plan on upgrading their offside technology. It was one of the, I guess, a big argument, a big issue this season was the offside technology just wasn't as up to par as other leagues are. So they wanted to upgrade that, kind of once again clean up the game a little bit easier. I'm intrigued of how all that, like what happens to the goal scoring as far as the game goes, but I think obviously trying to make it as accurate as possible because once again the world, and I think this is also just a preparation for the World Cup. So I think that's kind of where that comes into play. Leagues Cup will be played midweek. So there's going to be a lot of changes with Leagues Cup. It's going to still, I believe, Liga MX is still going to be trying to play their regular season. As a matter of fact, it's not all the teams. Actually, Liga MX, all the teams are playing in Leagues Cup, but they're trying to make it a midweek thing. With that being said, they're trying to lessen the number of double match weeks, which obviously that means having a midweek match. They want to lessen that more, which is kind of ironic because you just throughout Leagues Cup. But I think when they're talking about when Leagues Cup is over, not having so many matches being played midweek, just having more games focused on the weekends. And I think that just goes down to scheduling and how that's going to work. It's going to be. I'm intrigued by that, but I do agree. I think this goes back to my argument that we were just overworking these players. But yeah, that I think that's a really good thing that they're talking about. Reforms in signing foreign players. So they're trying to. I'm assuming what they're saying that is they're trying to minimize the amount of foreign players being signed. There is a lot of foreign players right now in Mexico. I don't think that's a bad thing or anything like that, but once again, this is just my thought process. The league, I think, has an obligation for the national team of their country, right? So Liga MX has an obligation to El Tri, to develop Mexican players and be playing Mexican players, and utilizing Mexican players for the sake of the national team. And, obviously, for years that's always been the case for Liga MX. Most of the players that have played in the Mexican national team were players from Liga MX, not players from overseas. I think it's cool that we have more Mexican players overseas. There's nothing wrong with it. But once again, this is your hub. This is where you're developing all your talent. If Europe wants to get those guys, that's just more money towards the club. And I think that's a different issue right there. But I think the reform on signing foreign players, I think once again, bringing big names guys to kind of similar to MLS, except a little bit different, I guess you can say. But just because the league is somewhat better than MLS as far as competitiveness goes, so I think that's an interesting thing to be brought up. I wonder what they mean by that. Like, what is there going to be a certain percentage of foreign players that you're allowed to have on each roster, and how do they enforce that, and what is going to be what's the terminology going to be used in order to I guess shrink the number of foreign players playing in Liga MX. And I think that kind of follows up to the next thing that they also want to do, which is increase the minimum minutes for youth players under Liga MX developmental rules. So they want their academy products playing. They want to see they want to see Mexican players playing, and putting in, and they're going to be putting in, like, these guys got to play a combination of this many minutes on overall. So I think that's going to, this is a rule that I very much agree. I want MLS to implement something similar to that. I think that they need to be pushing more harder on having academy players. There needs to be more of an initiative, more of an incentive to develop players, and having players come out of the academy, not going to college, but also coming into the first team. I think last year everyone praised the Houston Dynamo for having the most amount of guys playing in MLS Next Pro. That's cool, but none of them have been featured in the MLS team. So, like, while that is cool that there's so many academy players playing on MLS Next Pro, when are we going to see these guys go to the first team and play first team minutes? Um, I think that that's going to be the next question, right? So I think that there needs to be. I don't know about forcing the number of minutes on a player. On a player could be the thing. I think maybe just having an incentive program for MLS teams that are able to have players that are going to be playing minutes in the MLS. I think is going to be an interesting. Once again, this is I'm really not. I haven't fully thought out this thing. I'm just saying that there does needs to be some sort of incentive program. Not program. I want to say there's a certain incentive into having MLS Next players make it to your first team. Like there needs to be some sort of initiative on that part. And I'm liking this because this is a good idea. I think that this is going to push like looking at the development of some of your players in your academy system, seeing what they're doing and if they're ready to go out there and play in the first team and get those minutes, you know. So I think that that's going to be a good thing. And then the last thing, I don't know if it's official or not, but they are working on bringing back promotion relegation in Liga MX. If you guys aren't familiar, the way they did promotion relegation, it was at the end of the calendar year, which obviously Apertura and Clausura, once those were concluded, the team with the lowest the lowest team, the worst team, right? The worst team from the two seasons combined, I gets relegated. I don't know if it's two or three, or I think it's just one. One team gets relegated down, and then obviously the champion gets promoted to Liga MX. At least that's how I remembered it. I could be wrong on that part, but they're working on setting a date when they're going to bring back promotion relegation, which I think is a good thing. I think that's good. Once again, it just works. It just works overall for the league. I mean, it gives you consequences if you're not performing. Because honestly, there's some teams in Liga MX that maybe do need to go down to the second division. They, there's nothing wrong against them, but they just need to be able to develop. And I don't think staying in on top of Liga MX, is going to help them. And obviously, this, me saying this, someone's going to be like, "Well, how do you feel about MLS?" Yes, at some point, I do want to see promotion relegation to MLS. Do I think that we're still in a time where that's going to be a thing? I still don't. I think once again, we'll see what USL does. If USL is able to put in, can show that people are still going to watch and support teams if they get relegated. Because once again, it's just U.S. sports culture is just it's a weird thing to explain. So that's the only reason I'm not too confident in promotion relegation. That's just my reasoning. Everyone has their reasons for promotion relegation. Like I said, do I want to see promotion relegation in the U.S.? Yes, I want to see it done at some point. I just need to see if the fandom is going to be there, and I think that's the alarming concern right now for a lot of MLS teams. I think a lot of teams want to see promotion relegation. The worry is just, is it going to hurt the team more than it is? But I do believe that there needs to be consequences. Also, Greg Vanney got a contract extension after, and they finally, and LA Galaxy just finally got their first win of the season. So let that sink in. But just to wrap things up real quick, other things that are going on in Liga MX, Mark Spiegel, he is has gotten his riches from waste management, technology, innovative technology, and also is a co-owner of Rubicon Global. He is prepared to buy Querétaro from Grupo Caliente, which is another thing that I also want to see fixed in Liga MX is people that have multi-ownerships. Obviously, once again, the whole issue that happened with Club León, where they had to they had to remove Club León from the Club World Cup. Also, congratulations to LAFC. They beat Club America to this. So now we're gonna have another MLS team in the Club World Cup. So that's interesting. But yeah, so Club León wasn't able to qualify because they're also part of Pachuca's ownership group, which Pachuca is competing in the Club World Cup. So because of that, that eliminated them. So I think that Liga MX, maybe I'm not saying Liga MX has to force these teams, the teams that have like more than one team to sell their players, but sell their teams. But I think obviously to prevent that from happening again, they do need to do it. So Mark Spiegel is going to buy Querétaro, which I'll be honest, Querétaro has been. It's an interesting club just because obviously I think they still just have that stain on them from what happened a few years ago with the riot. Not gonna touch base on. I'm not gonna bring it up anymore, but obviously from that incident, and I think maybe some to the point where Grupo Caliente were just happened to be the teams that the group, the ownership group that was willing to, have ownership of this club. But yeah, so Mark Spiegel, an American, is looking to invest into Querétaro. So I'll be interested to see if the purchase does happen, and what exactly is he planning on implementing to kind of move on from that whole stain for Querétaro. So we'll see what happens there. And then Pumas and Atlas are currently banned from registering players by FIFA. It's a really interesting thing. I don't know. They just been having issues on registering players. And I think because of that, I think they were one. I think it was Atlas. They actually did register the players. They just didn't do it by the deadline. Which, I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, give them a slap on the wrist or anything like that. But like, I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta, if there's a deadline, there's a deadline, and I guess both Pumas and Atlas just violated those, and that's why. And I believe also Pumas is still dealing with the whole Dani Alves thing. But yeah, because of that, FIFA is banning them from registering players, so they won't be able to make any transfers. So we'll see what happens, man. Maybe they utilize that youth player minimum, the minimum thing. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Liga MX, man, there's going to be a lot of changes happening. I can't wait to see it. Once again, it's cool that they're focusing on improving the Mexican national team, and I think that is what needs to be done for any league. I think even MLS needs to get into it.
Who is that guy?